Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise today to address a question. On September 9th of this year, before this Parliament came back in session, the Liberal Party of Canada, not the Government of Canada, but the Liberal Party of Canada, asked Mark Carbon Tax Carney to join the Liberals as a special economic advisor to advise on the economics of the country. Not, again, the Government of Canada, but the Liberal Party of Canada, in order to avoid the conflict of interest rules that are incumbent upon officers that serve this government. He's a special advisor. He's a special advisor, a special new task force on economic growth, a task force of one person. He's doing this himself. He's actually not talking to anybody else. And it is one of those things where we do know, and my colleagues have called for an examination of this and the lobbying commissioner to look into whether this is a conflict of interest and how it should be properly dealt with in this House of Commons. Now, who is Mark Carbon Tax Carney? Well, amongst other roles, where he serves a lot of rich people around the world, he is the chairman of Brookfield Asset Management here in Canada. Now, Brookfield is a very, very large corporation. It invests in all kinds of credit and equity around the world. It has assets under management of $1 trillion US. So a significant fund. That's a little less than half of Canada's GDP in one fund that Mark Carney helps oversee. I don't begrudge him the fact that he's done well heading up a corporation like that. He's the chairman, by the way. He's never actually worked there, but being a chairman, he's actually rewarded. How does Mark Carney get rewarded? He gets rewarded with what's called deferred stock units and other options to participate in the financial success of Brookfield Asset Management. Now, let's say $1 trillion of assets under management. Usually these types of funds get paid as a percentage of their assets they hold under management. Let's say it's 1%. It can be as high as 2%. Let's say it's 1%. That's $10 billion a year of compensation that goes towards the managers of Brookfield Asset Management. I can be corrected on that number at some point in time if someone would like. But on September 17th, so after September 9th, September 17th comes along, and Brookfield is proposing to lead a new $50 billion fund focused on Canadian assets, leading with $10 billion, not from a pension fund, but from the Government of Canada. Not the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, the Government of Canada. $10 billion from a broke government that actually doesn't have any money, but is $50 billion more in deficit this year, plus another $40 billion that it's proposing from pension funds. Now, where's it getting that notion? It's getting that notion because back in the spring, in April, the finance minister actually had a different former Bank of Canada governor look into how we need to address the productivity crisis that's happening in Canada and find out why businesses or why pensions aren't investing in Canadian business. And that's because, quite frankly, it's a broken financial system under this government. They've broken the regulatory environment. CPPIB, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, in fact only has 12% of its assets invested in Canada. The rest is offshore. It doesn't invest in Canada. Investment funds right now are flowing outside this country. But let's look at that conflict of interest and say, after we've debated in this House of Commons for how many weeks about the conflicts of interest involved in SDTC, how they can continue on this path to have another Liberal insider face or try and take some more funds from Canadians and not face the conflict of interest regulations. You're protecting your friends. Have you learned nothing? And will you actually accept that this should be a conflict of interest?
I'm not called into question here, I hope. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm going to get to the question right away. I did want to first take this opportunity just to wish people a happy Diwali. And I say that because Diwali is a celebration in every region of the country. It is a part of our Canadian heritage. It's about good over evil, light over darkness, knowledge versus ignorance, and is something in which I think Canadians, whatever their background is, should get out there and celebrate Diwali. So just to wish everyone a very, very happy Diwali. Having said that, I appreciate the members' comments. Obviously, I don't agree with the members' comments because what he's been tasked to do is what I always classify as character assassination, where a Conservative member will go out of his or her way in order to take down an individual. Often we see that of ministers. Now we even see it more of potential politicians into the future. Mark Carney has in fact contributed as a public servant in many different ways, not only here in Canada, but also in the UK. As the governor of the Bank of Canada, he has been very much at the forefront of public policy. Having said that, I do find that it's very disturbing when you get conservatives so focused on tearing people down without any legitimate justification. It would be the equivalent, Madam Speaker, if I was to take 4 minutes to be able to be critical of Jenny Byrne. Jenny Byrne, for example, is an individual that is very cozy with the leader of the Conservative Party, very cozy with the Conservative caucus, and she is actually a lobbyist. Her company, one of the firms that they lobby for, is in fact Loblaws. And Loblaws, as we know, is very much Canadians are concerned in terms of food inflation and the role that Loblaw might have been gouging consumers. Yet you have that individual in the inner circle of the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. I would suggest to you that she's probably closer to the leader in different ways, more so than most of the Conservative members of Parliament. Carries a great deal of influence, Madam Speaker. So, as I say, I don't want to spend my full 4 minutes in terms of talking about that. Rather, I want to be able to talk about some of the things in which we have witnessed over the last number of years, where there have been challenges in through the economy, and how we look to individuals such as Mr. Tipp, the current governor of the Bank of Canada. That's the same governor that the leader of the Conservative Party says we should be firing. The same governor of Canada, the Bank of Canada, that dismisses him completely, Madam Speaker. Well, through that leadership and the administration of public policy, both from Ottawa and other jurisdictions, today we have an inflation rate less than 2%. We are on target. We have interest rates that are actually going down. Now, I realize it goes against what the Conservatives want to do. The Conservatives want to assassinate characters. Mr. Tiff is probably one of those individuals. At least at one point, the Conservative leader was critical of that. He's backed off a little bit, to his credit. But, Madam Speaker, the idea that, look, we have a lot of people that have done so much for our country, we should...
Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, there's no assassination here attempted. What we're trying to do is get accountability for government that doesn't exist with this government right now. We've made that quite clear over the last handful of weeks, where the Green Slush Fund has to present their documents about where the conflicts of interest were and where the investments were into insiders' companies that need to be disclosed to Canadians here. We want to make sure there's accountability. Likewise, with Mark Carbon Tax Carney, you've got to be accountable to the government. You've got to make sure your interests are disclosed very clearly, and you don't get paid for presenting something to the government that is going to be put a lot of dollars into your own pockets and the pockets of your companies. This is all we're asking for here: accountability, the lobbying commissioner to actually take a good look at this. But we're also asking the government, when are you going to learn your lessons as far as corruption goes and stop dealing on the insider basis and funneling Canadian dollars, taxpayer dollars, to your friends? Thank you.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'm sure you noticed the member indicated, well, it's not about character assassination, and then right away went into Carbon Tax Carney. And that is the slogan, because the Conservatives are very good at creating slogans. I don't know if they use AI or whatever it is that they do, Madam Speaker, to come up with these slogans. But at the end of the day, all one needs to do is just read the comments of the members that he's put on the record, or the many comments that his colleagues put on the record. And it's not only on this particular individual who doesn't sit inside this chamber, but it is a great deal of focus even on the Prime Minister. I knew the Conservatives started character assassination with the leader of the Liberal Party even before he was the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker. Even before he was actually leader of the Liberal Party, they were going after his character, Madam Speaker, in a very negative way. They have spent millions